Welcome to the Built to Lead podcast. I've got a special guest for you today. Probably my favorite person in the whole wide world, if I'm honest. Best looking girl I've ever met. And this girl is my wife. And today we're going to talk about marriage and what it's like to be married in an entrepreneurial type scenario. And we're just going to kind of share about our experience with marriage and the things that have helped us have a strong marriage over the almost 18 years we've been married now.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing? I got a few statistics for all of you. I was looking up marriage statistics before this podcast in preparation, and it's mind-boggling, actually, some of these numbers. So I thought I'd share them off the hop here. So marriage and actually divorce rates in North America, so I have some North America numbers, and that is for your first marriage, it's an average of 41 to 50% failure rate or divorce rate. Second marriage, 60% failure rate, and third marriage, 70% plus.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And it points to that your second and third marriages are not going to be easier than your first one.
Well, you take yourself into them and you are half the marriage.
Yeah, the problem follows you. And we've seen it. I have seen it in other people that we know that they get divorced for a certain set of reasons and they want to blame it all on the other person. And
instead of working on themselves.
They bring that into their next marriage and have the same set of problems all over again, right?
Yeah.
By country, as it turns out, Canada, 38% divorce rate. The United States, 43% divorce rate. So a 5% higher rate of divorce in the United States than in Canada. By age, if you get married between 20 and 25, 44 to 60% divorce rate. 25 to 30 years old, 25% divorce rate. And 30 to 34 years old, 14% divorce rate.
It's interesting.
I was surprised actually by the statistic. We were married. We got engaged when I was 17 and you were 18. And then married shortly after I turned 18 and you were 19. So we got married very young. A lot of people think it's crazy, the story of our engagement and everything. But we have obviously had success. And I'll share my thoughts and you can share yours, Ashley, when we get to that part of the podcast. But obviously, young marriage can be challenging for people, and we'll share about that as well, because we had plenty of challenges in our marriage in the early days. But the joke you made earlier was just, well, obviously it's a higher rate to have more time. They're younger. They have 10 more years to get divorced.
Yeah, when you get married older, you're married less years because you're older, so that would be lower.
Yeah, less potential suitors. Yeah. Maybe you're a little wiser when you're older.
Maybe. I thought it would be higher because I thought you'd be like more set in your ways and more selfish going into marriage if you're older.
That was how I kind of perceived it, is when we got married young, I felt like we kind of grew up together. We found out who we were while we were together, and we weren't set in our ways. Where I've seen other people, when they get married, when they're older, 30s plus even especially, you've kind of figured out who you are. You've figured out your rhythms. You decided what you like and what you don't like. And then when you kind of clash or crash into being in a relationship with someone else, it's really tricky to compromise or change or adjust to the other person's rhythms.
To adjust to being married, to be with somebody else.
To becoming one when you've already decided what you are. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's interesting. Another statistic that kind of blew my mind, which is almost the reason for this podcast, is that in the United States, because I couldn't find a Canadian statistic, the average divorce rate of entrepreneurs is 48% rather than 43%. So 5% higher divorce rate in entrepreneurs.
I believe that.
What? I also believe that and understand it. And when you look at, I'm not going to go totally just off people we know, but even celebrities and people who are popular who are running big conglomerates and stuff, it seems like you hear and see marriages collapse.
Well, building a business, running a business, that takes a lot of time and effort, which leaves you less time and effort at home.
Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs tend to give their whole selves often to their business and therefore end up neglecting their marriages or putting their marriages second to their business.
And a lot of times businesses don't work out and entrepreneurs are on their second, third, fourth business and their spouse maybe isn't sold out for the debt or the constant change.
Well, and most entrepreneurs fail. at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Like often some of the most successful entrepreneurs that are out there have had 2, 3, 4 failed bankrupt businesses prior to finding the thing that they win on.
Yeah.
But does their marriage survive?
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah. Because there's a lot of stress and a lot of, I mean, financially, like money is a big driver in the world and in life, right?
It's one of the main things that people fight about in marriages, struggle
Absolutely.
with. And that's another key point we're going to get into later. Noted things that cause reasons for strain and divorce in entrepreneurial marriages. Type 5 top things: financial strain, neglect and time demands, different goals, stress and emotional toll, and risk-taking personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah, those all kind of make sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's completely
That hits
unsurprising.
home.
So from there, I think we'll go into, there's a lot to unpack there already. Just those 5 things, there's lots to unpack.
Yeah.
But I think we can share some of our experiences with those types of things and how we navigated them in our marriage. And hopefully that provides value to some of the listeners, whether it's just in your marriage, entrepreneur or not, but also especially for entrepreneurs. It's amazing to me. I get a ton of comments and messages and emails of people asking how I navigate my marriage, my kids, parenting, relationships, all that while running multiple businesses all at the same time. And it's really tough. And I definitely have not done it well our entire marriage, or my whole life, but I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and we have learned a lot of lessons together.
Yes.
So, I'm going to just start out by saying, like I said before, we were very young when we got married.
Yes, we were.
We were very young and very naive. And I say often to people, like, we make the biggest decisions of our entire lives that form and shape our entire lives when we have no business making decisions of that magnitude. Often when we're 16, 17, 18 to even 25, we're not really that mature even at that point in our life. And we're deciding our career path. We're deciding our spouse in a lot of cases. We're deciding how many kids and when we're going to have kids. We're deciding to buy a house, buy property. But like everything that we do that creates trajectory happens really early in our lives.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like to be able to make those decisions well is a game changer. And the people that do make good decisions at that point in their life are often much more successful because they've had 5 or 10 years more experience and positive experience than people that have been through a failed marriage or been through failed relationships or picked a career that wasn't the right one or went to college or university and found out that wasn't really what they wanted. It's a tough time for sure. Yeah,
lots of people are on 3-4 degrees or whatever. And when we chose to get married, like you were 17 when we got engaged, we were met with opposition. We had to fight against that.
Yeah, like there wasn't anyone on our side.
Not a lot of people were on our side.
No, at a certain point, I wasn't sure if your parents were going to be coming to the wedding. And when I see pictures of it and I look at now our teenagers, our oldest is 15, youngest is 12, to even consider that our oldest son could be getting married in 2.5 years from now, it seems wild and crazy to me. And that's why people thought it was crazy then,
Yep.
So that makes sense. But one thing I love about how our marriage walked out and how it worked out is just that we, like I said earlier, I feel like we grew up together. We became who we were, and our identity was tied up in who we wanted to become in our marriage. We didn't figure it out on our own necessarily.
Yeah. And what I say also, like to our children or other people, is that relationship before you choose to be together forever, to be married, is that we were friends and we wanted to hang out together all the time and didn't care if anyone else was with us or not. And at that point, it's like, I just want to hang out with you, so let's get married.
Yeah, it was funny that when we started dating, it was like I didn't have any friends anymore. I just abandoned all of them.
You did.
And a lot of people would say that's unhealthy. But
except for Ryan. Ryan hung around for a while.
Yeah, we had, it's not like I never hung out with my friends, but it's like we spent every waking moment together for half a year, basically.
Yeah, you were my best friend. That's all I wanted.
Yeah, and I guess that's still working out for us.
Yeah.
It's funny, I asked a couple of other friends of ours prior to this podcast, what do you think is the most important thing that's kept your marriage strong, most of them in that same 15 to 25 year range marriages. And in a roundabout way, all of them said communication and the fact that I want to be with my wife always. And it doesn't matter what we're doing, how we're doing it, whatever. She's the person I want to be with, or he's the person I want to be with. And it doesn't actually matter what we're doing, where we're going, how we're doing it. We want to be together, both of us.
Yeah. And that annoys the kids sometimes.
Yeah.
So I want to be with your dad.
Yeah. Sorry. Beat it. Right. So I was thinking about some super valuable things that we learned really, really early in our marriage. And we did premarital counseling prior to marriage and with some older couples that pointed us to some things that were quite valuable information, especially to me, a naive punk guy at the time. And I thought it would be worth the kind of going over those things. Did you remember our marriage counseling?
Yes.
Yes. So we took personality tests.
Yes.
Yes. And it was quite funny because it's the first time I'd ever even taken a personality test. I've taken dozens of them now, and I understand that now. But like what they were pointing us to, and I see now the value in that I didn't understand then, is you need to know yourself and you need to know your partner really well first, and not just like, oh yeah, we love being together. And the reality is at that point you don't even know what love really is. You're just infatuated with one another. Yeah,
infatuation is huge when you're first getting together with someone. But yeah, to know who they are deeply, what runs them, and their personality, all of that stuff is very important when going into it, for sure.
Yeah. And so in that personality test, I was like the highest end spectrum, D dominant, assertive, outcome-based, unemotional, cold kind of thing. And you were the exact farthest opposite, which is, this is the disc profile. So you were in the S. So you're just like a sympathetic, steady, slow-moving, less assertive kind of personality. And again, opposites attract. So it's not that it doesn't make sense, but the premarital counselor said, well, this is going to be a massive hurdle for the two of you to get over because you guys don't actually know how to communicate and you completely do not relate to each other's approach to life.
Yes.
And I remember being just shocked by that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're in love. Like, we're getting married. Like, we're good. Like, what do you even mean? And it was a pastor that we were meeting with at the time. And he said, well, for example, have you guys talked about this and this and this and this and this? And it's like, we had actually talked about pretty much everything he said, but he said, okay, but have you talked about change? Like when you want to change something.
Was hard for me
and this is the main
ago.
point that he made that was probably been the most valuable piece of information that I've used in our marriage is he said, Ashley does not like change. She does not handle change well, and she needs a long time to process and deal with it. He said, you love change, you change quickly, and you are very decisive, and you're going to be chasing after and making change happen constantly. And so you will wear her out, and she will drive her away by your constant need for change. And if you want her to stick with you and come alongside, you need to tell her early, prepare her for it, communicate very openly and honestly and quickly, and also give her time to process and deal with the change you want to make before you just bring the change into her face.
Yeah, you didn't do that very easily at the beginning.
I still struggle with it to this day. I know it, but like I know when I would do something of that nature, those words would ring in my ears when I would see you kind of like revolt against it or be very emotionally affected by a change. If, there's a good story that you'll remember very quickly of, I tend to be a fairly generous, wanting to help and serve type of person. And so there was a couple that was kind of going through a bit of a struggle. And they had sold their house and they were supposed to be moving across the country, but they hadn't figured out where they were going yet. And they were kind of in between jobs and they were totally underwater and they didn't know what to do. And I invited them to bring their camper and move onto our driveway.
Yes, they also had, 3-4 children?
3 or 4 young kids. So without telling you, came in the front door, told you that they were coming over for dinner and that their camper was moving onto the driveway and that they were going to be living there for an indefinite amount of time.
think it was only supposed to be a few days. It turned into 3 weeks.
Yeah. So, again, ultimately a good thing, but I didn't even talk to you about it before.
No.
And you're being a little bit more of an introverted personality and liking your space. And again, me knowing you and who you are, I should have known that.
You invaded my space.
I invaded you with this, again, great couple
Lovely
and
people.
great situation and happy to help. But I remember how hard that was for you to accept and how upset you were with me and were for a long time after
Wasn't
that.
just that you invited them onto the driveway. Then you also told me they were coming for supper.
Yeah, it was just a lot all at once with no warning, right? And it was like the perfect picture of me violating the understanding of who you are and what kind of person you are, and me serving you as a husband ultimately.
You still do that. You invited a couple to live in our house last year too.
I do struggle with not doing that, but we have our moments. I did talk to you about this first.
Right.
Last time, anyways. Moving on. So there's a couple other things that they pointed out, which I thought were valid to kind of bring up here, is when you are working on deciding if someone is going to be the one or someone you want to marry, I think it's very important that there's 5 specific areas that you kind of chew through or go through or really work through with that person. And they are family dynamics. And so, your family, my family, how we get along with each of those families, like the in-law thing that we're going to deal with. How are we going to navigate that? Because there's the cleaving piece of marriage where we move away both from our families and we become one. And I see a lot of marriages end up struggling or failing because they don't actually step away from the in-laws, or they're too close, or they're too involved with one another. And so you need to decide to come together and to make your own thing away from the in-laws, and also navigate how that relationship between you and your family and the relationship between me and my family were very, very different relationships.
Yes.
And I had to come to understand, to learn how yours was, and you had to come to understand how to learn with us. And then we had to decide as a couple how we would approach that going
it's
forward.
Very important
as a
when
unified
you get
front.
Married,
Right.
To become one, to separate yourself, like not separate from your families, but that you are one identity outside your families.
Absolutely. And
because you don't,
two together are a
much.
team, and you are for each other. And how many fights and marriage problems have you and I both seen with couples where they take sides with family, and family gets involved and invades the marriage in some ways. And so that's a huge one to get really squared away with your future spouse when you're working on it. Yep. Another key one is kids. How many kids do you want? Mm-hmm. We there's a couple we know where basically they were engaged for multiple years, and then they were working towards getting married. And then I think it was even after they were married, like a year later, he just told her he didn't ever want to have kids. And they'd been together for more than half a decade, and just blindsided. She wants kids. He doesn't want kids. And now you're here together, married and invested in each other, have a house together and all these things. And ultimately the marriage ended shortly after that. But it's like, I don't understand how you can get married and not have talked about what you want in your family. There's not talking
about it, but there's also... I also know like other people where they did talk about it, and they go in and the other spouse thinks they can change their mind as well.
The I can change you thing.
The I can change you part.
Yeah.
Which not understanding and respecting the person for who they are.
Yeah. No, I agree.
There's that too.
So kids, you should have it somewhat, like, again, things change obviously, but you should be on the same page about how many kids you want. And it's the faux pas typical.
We didn't
not the
know
first
how
date
many
question.
kids we wanted though until we were halfway through having kids, because we were still having that discussion.
Yeah, but we were like, okay, between 2 and 4 kids, but we want to have kids. And it's not just how many kids, it's when do you want to have kids? Do you want to have them early in our marriage? Do you want to build a career and then have kids later? Like, there's a lot of aspects to having kids that can throw off your relationship if you don't see it the same way.
Because children also do change the dynamics of the household as well. And it's hard to have children.
It will put more strain on your marriage than anything that you'll ever experience having kids, right? And we've seen another scenario too where relationship is struggling or they're having a hard time, and then they decide, well, once we have kids, it'll bring us together, it'll change things, and it just makes it worse. It's a disastrous decision to make. It's like, you need to be strong and united together before you bring kids into the family, because you're going to need every ounce of energy and support from one another that you can get.
But even this week, we're dealing with our kids that the way you're dealing with the situation, the way I think the situation should be dealt with, we're not on the same page either. And so that also will put a wedge sometimes into, if you're not if you don't have a foundation and aren't strong.
Yeah, you have to have some foundation to that. But yeah, what you're saying, I think, is that no matter how together you are on something, things are going to come up that you did not foresee that are going to challenge you, and you're going to find things that you don't necessarily agree on with kids. And so you need to make sure that you're solid on that respect. Yeah. Other thing is careers. So, a lot of people put a lot of identity in their career, and they put a lot of energy and time into their careers. And so it's really important that you both understand each other's desires and even personality types. Like some women are really nurturing and want to be a stay-at-home mom and a homemaker and a mom and all these things. And other women, they might want to be a mom, but they want to be in the workforce and they like to contribute and be purposeful in what they're doing. And so you're going to want to put their kids in daycare or do it that way. And the husband maybe doesn't see it that way, or they do see it that way, or whatever. But your career choices are incredibly important. And yes, they will change. Everybody changes, but you got to be on the same page about your individual personal desires of what you want to pursue in your life and in the purpose and career choices you make. Yes. We were very, very clear in our early stages of marriage that I'm going to be in business and I'm going to be chasing an entrepreneurial journey, and we're not going to move for my job. My job is here and we're going to live here because our businesses are here. And we agreed. I really wanted someone who wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and raise a family.
I was in university until we got engaged. And then I quit university because I thought I needed a career. I thought I needed a degree, but I just wanted to be home anyway. So yeah, when I nailed you down, I just quit school.
You nailed me down. Yeah, I was a bad influence for school anyways, but we both discussed at length what we wanted our family to look like and what we wanted our finances to look like and our careers to look like. And I knew all along I wanted someone who was good with being a stay-at-home mom and a more traditional style wife that wants to raise the kids in the family and put dinner on the table and that type of thing. And that was a big deal to me, right? And so I needed to find someone and discuss that with someone, because if I'd married, like maybe I could have married someone who was a career person, but it wasn't what I was looking for or wanted for my future, right? Yeah. And so we discussed it and we agreed and we were on the same page and we moved past that, right? Yeah. Yeah. So what do I got here for the last one? Religion. Woohoo. Spirituality. That's another one that blows my mind. How many people get deep into a relationship or even get married and they're not on the same page in their spiritual faith journey or in the religious choices
I've seen it work out and I've seen it not work out, but it's definitely something that can cause a huge rift.
And in all of these things, circumstances can change, absolutely. Yeah. But I think if you're fundamentally on different wavelengths when you're getting married, that's a pretty rough thing to have to navigate after the fact. You're committing to your spouse for the rest of your life, till death do us part, and to not have the similar belief system and to have the root or the basis of that in your home surrounded on a unified front would be, I can't even imagine the challenge that would be. When I paint every decision and every thought and everything that I do through my relationship with Jesus, if you and I didn't see it that way, we wouldn't approach things from the same perspective. Yeah. Which would be really tough. And then the last item is money. So that is, again, finances are a contentious issue for a lot of marriages. And so how we spend our money, how much risks we take with our money, how we earn our money, are we going to have a shared bank account, and are we going to look at our money as a uniformly ours in the marriage, and we spend it together and we make those decisions together? Or are you going to earn your money and I'm going to earn my money, and we're going to keep it separate, and you're going to contribute and I'm going to contribute?
Or you're a homemaker and you make no money, so do you have the right to spend the money that's coming in?
Yeah, you have the amount of decision-making compatibility with your husband, or is someone the shot caller there? Yeah. And there's a lot of different ways to do it, and we've seen, you and I, many, many different varieties of it. I've seen a lot of different ones work too. So it's like, I don't think there's necessarily just one way to do that. There's a lot of marriages where they have separate bank accounts and separate spendings. or they bring their money in together and then they each take a certain amount out for their own personal use or whatever. And then a lot of games and stuff going there. That's not our approach. Our approach is that all the money is both of ours and we decide together.
We had a hard time there for a little bit because you spend a lot of money.
I do have a habit of spending money.
But I didn't feel like, because we weren't making a lot of money at the time, I didn't feel like I had the right to spend money. And so I was starting to get a little allowance in a separate bank account, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, we had to navigate it. It was
navigating
tricky.
the finances is huge, because I think there was a lot of fighting before that. And not because it's like, I need to spend money. It's just that it just is there.
Well, and I think the enemy loves to use money as a dividing factor. And so he likes to drive a wedge with money. And so, again, as a man, you can sometimes get this arrogance of thinking like, well, because I'm the breadwinner and I'm bringing the money in, that I get to make the decisions for that reason. And that's just not true in the correct response of a man serving his family and providing for them. It's not, you're not providing for your family if you're going to use it to lord over them and manipulate your family because you've made the money for them. You've done it to serve them selflessly. And so then being on the same wavelength with your wife and respecting her preferences and thoughts and ideas about your finances is important, right?
Yeah. And I think like society, when it comes to being traditional home, traditional wife or homemaker, can see it as oppressive in the way that that there are a lot of men out there that are like, no, I bring the money home. This is what I say. Period.
Well, and I've felt that way before, and we've had to navigate those types of conversations earlier in our marriage, right? And that, I had to bring my thought process around to understand what it means to be a servant leader in the home, and
even though that's what we both wanted.
Well, absolutely, but even more so, like the fact that a strong leader of a family, the husband and spiritual leader, and all the ways that I need to lead our family is in respecting and understanding the wants and needs and preferences of your spouse and of your kids and of your entire family, and making decisions and leading the family selflessly through all of those preferences and keeping everyone's opinions in mind and dealing with them well. Yeah.
The kids the other day said, "That's Dad's money." And I was like, "Oh, hold up.
We're going to just teach a little bit on that." Yeah. Yeah. And so there's a lot to knowing your spouse and your partner really well. And we had really good support and counsel when we were getting our premarital counseling that pointed us to that. We've been to counseling sessions since, not for the reason that we were struggling, but just to kind of try to get the best out of our marriage and to resharpen and repoint. We regularly read marriage books and discuss them and talk through the concepts inside to just try and make sure that we're supporting each other well. But how we communicate is another really big one. We're each raised in very different environments and different homes, and our expectations when we come into a marriage can be very different than what we anticipate from our spouse. Yeah. I remember in the early days of our marriage when we would get into a row or a spat or whatever you call it, you had come from an environment where it was very common and normal to get very emotional and yelling and slamming doors and stomping around. And I came from an environment where we were very calm and collected. And yes, we disagreed, but we sat down and we dealt with it calmly and with our consistent tone of voice. And when we would fight, it would drive you insane that I would just stay calm and I would keep pursuing you. You'd want to yell and scream and run away and slam a door and then not talk to me, and I would follow you in there and I would keep talking and I would stay calm the whole time, and you just like I think I remember one specific time you're just like, would you just yell? You're so mad at me because I just wouldn't get emotional.
It made me more mad that you wouldn't get emotional.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just did. But.
Well, and in the end, we ended up having to navigate that. That's what you were used to. Yep. And that's why you tended to communicate that way. And I was used to a different way. And so then I tended to communicate that way. And so we had to learn to navigate communicating. And I don't ever advocate for yelling and screaming and emotional conversation, but I actually need to give you time to calm down. and get out of your emotional state often, and instead of pursuing you and chasing you and trying to get you
that would always make it worse. Once you learn to leave me alone so that I could calm down and like kind of gather myself, when you would follow me around, it would make me madder and madder and madder, and it just wouldn't go away.
Yeah, and I would just keep approaching the situation and from different angles. Is one of my favorite first couple of year stories. Was you were, I can't remember if you were early in your first pregnancy or what was going on, but
it could have been after pregnancy. The postpartum was real there.
But I would just remember you'd been really struggling and upset about your weight, because obviously you're an 18-year-old woman and 110 pounds when you got married, and we both put on a fair amount of weight shortly after being married.
Lovely early marriage.
And you had been complaining and getting upset and emotional about your weight or whatever. And so it's a silly conversation. It seems that we're both young and we're dealing with things. And so we talked about it 3 or 4 different interactions. And I was kind of like doing I'm going to try a bunch of different approaches to this. So I would go, no, you're not fat, babe, and this, that, whatever. And that wouldn't work. You'd still be upset. So then I'd be like, okay, well, I'll make some pointers of some ways to, work on it. And so then I tried that and that didn't work and you got upset. And I'm like, maybe if I just to try agreeing with her, then we can move past it. And so I remember distinctly, I said, so you're fat.
What are we going to
do about it? And you just lost your mind. And that story's been told dozens and dozens at weddings, at all the different events, because it maybe is the stupidest thing that's ever come out of my mouth in our whole marriage. But I just couldn't figure out how to communicate to you in your language, and then realize that I just maybe needed to let you deal with it and calm down and get over your own thing, and then have a conversation about it later.
Another time when we separated to calm down, I was starting to get mad you weren't coming back in after, I don't know, an hour or so. And I'd go out to the living room and you had fallen asleep in your underwear.
Always the best choice.
But I was so mad at you that I was like, well, I'm not going to invite him to bed to sleep, so that I just covered you with a blanket because I'm not heartless. And then I went to bed.
I do remember that night, yeah. So,
But how do we fight now?
Well, it's funny. Yeah, I guess we can segue into that.
Really even fight now?
We do. We fight now. We get in spats all the time.
Yeah, we
do. But the reality is, and I want to get into that a little bit later on, but we just talk about it now. It was a game changer in our marriage when we realized or learned, both of us, to appreciate the fact that we're on the same team and we have each other's best interest in mind. Because when you're in the midst of a fight, you have that, voices in your head or ideas or thoughts that your spouse is being malicious against you. She's doing this on purpose, or she meant to do that, or these types of thoughts come into our mind and they anger us more, and we go down this emotional train and we literally rile ourselves out with things that are just simply not true.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you go stop for a second, you go, my wife is on the same team as me. We have the same goals. We have the same want for outcome. We both want to have a nice evening tonight. Neither of us wants to be in this fight, and we're not starting the fight because we want to. So she's not being malicious right now. We're on the same team. And so if I can get back to that mindset, I can set aside the irrational feelings that I might be having about the fight that we're having, and even take a minute, set it aside, and then move on. So if we would to have an argument now in our relationship about whatever, about parenting, about finances, about schedules, about something I said that was stupid or whatever, we can have that conversation, whether it's resolved or not resolved. Yep. We can set that aside and then go back, move on, and go back to being in relationship and in a positive environment. And when we figured out how to do that very quickly, it made our marriage so much more enjoyable. No more cold shoulder, no more holding on to things for a long time, no more hanging out in that upset environment. It was like, okay, yeah, we have a disagreement. Yeah, there's a problem, but I know you don't hate me and you love me and you want what's best for me. And I know, that I don't hate you and that I want what's best for you. And so maybe we need to tackle that at a different time, or maybe we don't even have time to talk about it. Maybe it's not the right environment to have this conversation right now. So we can actually set it aside and then go have a nice date night, or go out to church, or go watch our kids play soccer and sit beside each other and hold hands and have a nice evening.
Yeah.
And when we figured out how to do that, that like fundamentally changed how enjoyable our marriage was.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is great. So it is something I think that's very important with you and your spouse is realizing you're on the same team. You want the same things. You love each other. You're both committed to each other. You're not looking to start a fight because you enjoy it or you want to have this fight. It's that there is actually a thing wrong that needs dealt with. And whether you deal with it now or later, whenever, you still love each other and you can go back to that state in your marriage where you just enjoy each other's company.
I think also it's the longer you're married too, the deeper understanding I would hope that you have of your spouse. Mm-hmm. Like knowing them and why that particular thing bothers them so much or whatever, because knowing them and knowing you, then you can decide whether it is a selfish act that's happening or just the wrong place, wrong time kind of argument.
Yeah, well, and people make mistakes. We're both human. And so we can just forgive the mistake and know that it wasn't malicious and move on. It's when we get really upset is when we feel like we've been like fundamentally wronged or the other person doesn't care or whatever. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to touch on is love languages. That's The 5 Love Languages, a great book. It was another transformational thing in our marriage when I learned about the 5 love languages, when we learned about it, and knowing your spouse's love language. And the thing that's so powerful about knowing it is that knowing my love language and you knowing yours and vice versa allows us to understand how we express and receive love. And so your love language is quality time with gifts as a second. My love language is words of affirmation with acts of service as a second, or physical touch, kind of close. But what that means is I'm going to, in my natural state, speak to you and show you love in my love language. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I tend to give you a ton of compliments and tell you how great you are and how much I love you and all these types of things because I'm a words of affirmation guy. It's what I like, but I just then naturally speak out that way. And you can see that those things, even though maybe they're not as big of a deal to you, and everybody loves all 5 of the love languages expressed to them, but certain ones mean more to the spouse than the other. Right. So if I'm like, gifts aren't even on my radar. I couldn't care less if anyone bought me a gift ever.
This is true.
Right. And I hate buying gifts and I hate receiving gifts and all these types of things, which is a really also kind of a funny thing. But I know that your love language is gifts. And so I need to go out of my way to try and figure out how to speak your language and to go out and get you a gift and buy you a gift. And you care a lot when I do something like that. Mm-hmm. Right. And
it's in a marriage, you can really feel unloved, even though your spouse is loving you, if they are loving you in the wrong love language.
Absolutely. That you can feel
unheard, unseen, even though your spouse thinks they're doing all the right things. But if you're giving me words of affirmation when I just want you to come cuddle me and sit on the couch and watch a movie.
Mm-hmm. And that has been a real thing in our marriage because quality time is such your love language. And in the world of being an entrepreneur, giving time to your spouse is one of the hardest things to be able to do, is to manage your time and be able to give it to your spouse. It's been a point of contention in our marriage many, many times. And if I didn't know that your love language was that, I would not understand because it's not my love language. And so I'm like, well, why do you care so much about this? Like, just back off. I'm an entrepreneur. This is how it is. Yeah. But when I realize that it is that important to you, then that means that I need to prioritize that language and that item for you. Yeah. That it unlocks, it takes away a lot of the problems.
There was a lot of fighting and a lot of argument early on in our marriage because of that, because I also felt like you were giving so much attention to other people outside the house that you even put a sticky note on your bathroom mirror. Yeah. Like, remember your wife.
And it will never, ever be easy to learn to speak the love language that is not your love language.
It's true.
But it is worth the effort in your marriage.
I'm not very good with words, but I try sometimes.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people with words of affirmation, they feel cheesy. They don't like being told it and they don't like saying it because it's not their language. I always joke,
I just pat you on the head and say, good boy.
Good boy. Yeah. It is funny. So I guess advice outwardly to others is find out what your spouse's love language is and learn to speak it and to give them love in that way, because they will feel so much more loved if you can speak in their language and they can speak in yours. Your marriage will it will grow in such a great and powerful way.
Yeah.
So keys to having a strong marriage. I kind of went through and wrote down all the things that I felt that were like really powerful things that we've learned over the years. And I just thought we would churn through some of those ideas. We've talked a little bit about it now. Communication, fighting fair, and creeping separateness is one thing. So creeping separateness is the problem of a lack of communication. So when you end up, like a lot of couples, when they're struggling or fighting and when things aren't going well, then communication tends to shut down. We have things like cold shoulders. We have things like avoidance behavior, conflict avoidance.
There's busyness in life in general too.
Yeah,
you running businesses, me having the kids being home, the kids having sports, other activities, that the creeping separate comes in there too, because you're not putting effort into your marriage because you're just literally running.
Literally under
and
time
surviving.
Constraint. Like you can't, and this is where I'll get to it in a second, but prioritizing your time becomes a really big deal. But you need to prioritize communication in your marriage, and you need to go and talk about the things that you're feeling with your spouse.
Absolutely.
Right. And fighting fair is giving your spouse room to communicate and to listen to them, whether you disagree or not. And also noticing creeping separateness and the things that are driving a wedge between you and your spouse. A comment that I was going to make that is a big deal to us is that we prioritize our relationship and our marriage over our kids always. Yes, and it's a very controversial and unpopular thing to talk about with people. We get a lot of pushback and
well, we would go on vacations,
attack, frankly.
Yeah,
from
we would
people.
Go on vacation, just you and I've had people go, "You're not taking your kids with you?" No. They're fine. They love their grandparents and they enjoy being with them.
Yeah. And the reality is, to me, what I say to people is like, I plan to spend the rest of my life with my spouse. Our marriage could be 50, 60, 70 years long, and I'm going to be with you forever. And I've committed to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to raise my kids for 20-ish years. And I'm going to have a relationship with them forever, but they're going to leave our family and go start their own family. And I want to give them the best as a husband and a father, but the best I can give them is showing them what a strong relationship and marriage and life looks like. Yeah. And leading by example is that, and having a strong marriage and keeping our marriage strong despite all the challenges of parenting and all the stress and all the things is maybe the best gift you can give your kids ultimately.
Yeah. Our kids know that our marriage comes first, but in a good way too, like where our 13-year-old daughter is like, Mom and Dad love birds. She says to her friends, like, they're just so cute together. Like, but it's really important for them to see that too, so that they know what to strive for when they're older.
I want my kids to be saying, you stop kissing, not Mom and Dad stop fighting. Yeah. Right. And modeling that relationship and what a healthy relationship looks like is a very powerful thing for helping your kids look for the right type of spouse and the right type of relationships in their future as they grow as well. Right. Yeah. So we prioritize our marriage over our kids, and that's the unpopular thing.
It is. It is unpopular.
Which, again,
it doesn't mean we don't love our kids, and it doesn't mean we don't spend time with our kids.
Yeah, that's prioritized as well.
Yes.
And it's given the right amount of time, but it's not prioritized over our marriage. If our marriage is struggling, that takes first precedence.
Absolutely.
Even when our kids are struggling.
Yep.
Right. So that's a big one. Next thing we talked about already, same team, moving on from conflict. So, being able to fight fair and be honest and open, but also to remember that you're on the same team always and be selfless in that respect. If we're both selfless in our marriage, we can move through anything. Right? Yeah. So we need to make sure we're always caring for our spouse over ourselves and serving them selflessly. And if we get that going both ways, we can overcome anything.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
One thing and non-negotiables. So there's an exercise, we read it in a book fairly early in our marriage. I think we read a book.
You're talking about Rocking the Rules?
I think it was in the Rocking the Rules book, which is a really great book that I'd recommend.
It's been a long time since I've read it. I should reread it.
But the suggestion is that, and I think they did it more frequently, but that you go on a date night and you talk about one item that if you could ask your spouse to do it without any argument, without negotiating with anything. I just want you to do this one thing and it would make me very happy. Or also one thing I'd like you to stop doing that would also make me very happy. No. And you each get one thing and then you work on that consistently for 3 months or a year or whatever.
It's lifelong.
And for us, it's become a lifelong thing.
What's your non-negotiable?
So this is the thing that's so funny about it is the little stupid things that really make your life easier. So for me, traditional marriage, she takes care of the laundry and the food and all these things. And I said, I just never, ever want to go into my closet and there not to be socks and underwear in my basket. I just want them to be there. I want my clothes there, clean, put away in my spot. So when I get up in the morning, I grab what I need and I go, because I'm up early all the time. And nothing like walking out and trying to half wake up your wife to ask her where your shirt is, hey, I'm out of underwear. Is there clean underwear? Like, I just hated that so much. I just want to go into my closet and I want my clothes to be there.
Fun hack. You just buy more underwear.
Yeah. Well, I don't care how you hack the system. You do whatever you need. But it seems so ridiculous.
It does seem very small.
And it is a small thing,
is
but it was a big deal for me. It's something
deal.
that drove me crazy. And so that was one of my asks that we had in one of our meetings. And yours?
Mine is a clean kitchen before bed every night. I do not like waking up to a messy kitchen in the morning. It starts my day off wrong. It gives me anxiety. And even going to bed knowing it's messy, I don't sleep well.
Yeah.
So if I go out in the evening, I expect to come home to a clean kitchen.
Yeah. And it drove me crazy, that one, for a long time in our early marriage, because it's like, I don't care that much if there's some dishes in the sink or if there's a bunch of stuff left out, like we can clean it up tomorrow or whatever, but it was important to you. And so therefore it became important to me.
The kitchen is my office.
Yes, for sure. And so like, it doesn't matter that I don't care about the thing that you want. And it doesn't matter that you don't care about the thing that I want.
You don't need to understand why either.
What matters is that we learn to serve the other person in the things that they care about, the little things that they care about, and be selfless to one another. And in so doing, we create reciprocity.
Yes.
So when I do something selflessly for you and serve a thing that you really care about, I learn to care about the things you care about. And when you do the same for me, you learn to care about things I care about. And when I receive that type of love and care, I tend to want to give it back more.
Absolutely. So then you tend to like see the little things that also matter. That is not a non-negotiable, but you see other things that matter, and you want to.
You start looking for them because it feels good to serve. Like there's no greater thing to do than to serve your spouse. Like it will make you very, very happy once you realize bringing them joy also brings you joy. And so reciprocity is a huge piece of marriages, is that you must first give to get. When you help your spouse get what they want, they will help you get what you want. And that's not just with spouses, that's with everything. Yep. But it's an incredibly important thing in your marriage as well.
Yeah, the one non-negotiable, it seemed silly, but it's definitely benefited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another thing is understanding feminine and masculine energies and hormones and learning to fit into our roles in that. Yet another controversial comment and topic, but one that I think that's important. And we've done a fair bit of research on to try and make sure that we understand it. But basically what it means is, and I'm going to segue this into servant leadership and trust, because this is a big part of this, is that when I stand in my role as the leader of the household and in my masculine energy, I create, I provide, give my strength to the family. I make sure that the family has protection and provision and all the things that I'm meant to do. I stand up and make the hard decisions that need to be made. And in so doing that, I create an environment where you can live and operate in your femininity as a woman.
And I think society puts masculine and femininity, the definition of them, in a negative light. Like, oh, the masculine man is this, and the feminine woman is meek and mild, but they're not that. That's not what it is.
No,
that's
the traditional roles, feminine and masculine, like, you have things now like toxic masculinity and feminism, and where they've taken these things completely out of context.
But that's not what we're talking about.
And I think the important thing to understand is that as a man, I have masculinity, and God made us both in his image, and he is both masculine and feminine. Yeah. And he made us each to carry our own role and built us that way. Our hormones surge based on what our role is to be, and when we step into our role, we have the correct balance. Is interesting. We were reading a thing or listening to a podcast. I can't remember what it was, but basically they were talking about the scientific effects of not being in your masculine or in your feminine role properly. And women, single moms, for example, who don't have a strong masculine role in their family, and have to take on the role of the masculine and do the jobs and make the decisions and provide the protection and the security and all those things. It literally physically changes the shape of their body.
Yeah.
It changes the hormones and the cortisol and all the things that pump hormonally throughout them, and they will be like quite physically a different person if they're having to operate in the masculine and not being able to live in the feminine.
And it can cause autoimmune thyroidism, all of that stuff, because of it's just not the way you are intended to, like women are intended to live.
Yeah. And when your hormones get out of whack, you have health issues, you deal with mental health issues and depression.
I thought it was interesting where they literally say your body changes shape.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of the mental health issues and stuff that's associated with wokeness and transgenderism and all these other things is a way thrown off base on misunderstanding of feminine
We're
and masculine roles.
We're living outside the way we were created to live.
Yeah. And then the other thing I think that's very important to point to is that those masculine and feminine roles don't work unless you're using them to serve the other.
I agree.
Masculine exists to serve the feminine. Feminine exists to serve the masculine, and when they come together in their roles, then they become whole,
harmony,
and they have harmony with one another. And so that's the thing that's incredibly important to understand, is that if you're using your masculinity to dominate or to control or manipulate, then you're outside of what your intention is. And if you're using your feminine to manipulate or control or dominate your other, then you're also doing it. So that is not the healthy version of masculine and feminine. And as a man, I think it's incredibly important to understand that your strength and your masculinity and what it means to be a man is to serve your spouse and your family and your community and your purpose and all of these things. That's what it's for. And so if we don't use them to serve, we'll lose the trust of our spouse,
the nurturing, the care,
and they aren't able, because if your spouse doesn't trust you, they can't operate in their purpose and in their calling in your marriage. If I take the leadership role in our family as the man, and I'm saying, I'm the man, I'm the leader, I'm going to do this, but I use that power and that strength to serve myself, then you can't trust me to make the decisions, because now you aren't secure in the decisions I make because you don't trust that I have your best interest in mind.
Yes.
But when I don't put myself first, but I put our family and my wife first above myself, then the decisions I make give you security and safety and provision and all the things that you need to be fully in your feminine energy.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I don't want to belabor that, but I think it's incredibly important, and even dig into that further if you're interested in that.
Yeah, there's some really interesting podcasts and science and stuff behind that.
For sure. Another thing that was, it took us a while to get there, for sure, but understanding that God is what our relationship with Christ is, what is meant to make us whole, to give us joy, to give us peace. Yeah. Everything that we need is caught up in our relationship with Christ, both man and woman. But what happens often in marriage is that we get infatuated and in love with this person, and we think that they are the thing that's going to fill the void in us, in our humanness, right? Yeah. And so then we start leaning on them and expecting them to be the whole filler of our spiritual, the thing that's missing in us, in our humanity and our sin. And so when we start trying to lean on our spouse to fill that hole, we realize that they can't, and that they are just another sinful human who has their own hangups and their own problems, and that we're both ultimately broken.
You need to make God number one before your spouse.
Yes, but a lot of marriages end up failing because you come to realize that your spouse isn't going to fill that hole in you, and they never will. Yeah. And so then you go out searching and looking for someone else to fill that hole. Yeah,
you go outside the house looking.
You go out looking for it from somewhere else, right? I think in Wild and Hurt, he calls it the blonde-haired woman. You get close and you realize that she's so beautiful, she's everything you ever thought, and then you realize, oh, she's not, and then the next one shows up. And I'm speaking from the perspective of men, but they try to fill the void in themselves with women, with love, with infatuation, with sex, or whatever it be.
Women in the household sometimes do that with children.
Yeah.
They have children because
they think that's going to fill the void as well. That's a whole nother thing. But the point is that we need to go to God for those things. Yeah. The only person that's going to provide your joy and your peace and your purpose and your fulfillment is God, is the relationship with Jesus. And so once we figure that out, we can stand in our own identity as sons and daughters of Christ, and be whole in that, and then we can come together ever more powerfully in our marriage.
That makes your relationship closer.
Yeah, because you're both trying to get closer to Christ and to God. You get closer to each other in that reaching and striving and desire for more relationship, rather than being upset with one another for not filling that void. Right. Yeah. So that's huge.
Because expectation comes out of that.
Absolutely. So that kind of covers everything on my keys to a strong marriage list. Those are all very, very important things. We touched on various different things along the way, but that was a lot of things that we've learned. So I wanted to segue that lastly into what are the specific challenges of being an entrepreneur and having being married to an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur married to a wife. And I'm going to kind of just recite the things that were noted earlier in the podcast of why entrepreneurs have a higher divorce rate.
Yeah.
And that is, there's financial strain, neglect and time demands, different goals, stress and emotional toll, and risk-taking personality.
I think neglect is really high up there when it comes to entrepreneur, because you're giving all of yourself into your business.
Yeah, it becomes a big issue. So what are the solutions? Like, what are the things that we do that help us navigate those problems? Because they're real problems, and every marriage that has entrepreneurial...
have an assistant, and I text her to give me time in your schedule.
Yeah, it's true. That's one of the things on my list, prioritization and time management. So one thing I'll say as an entrepreneur, and this isn't for everybody, but for me, it was a game changer, is when we agreed for you to be a stay-at-home mom. I call it the stay-at-home mom hack, right? As an entrepreneur, and one that's very high functioning with lots of different business and a lot of things going on, for me to be fully unleashed to do the things that I need to do to grow and to strengthen and to lead people and all that kind of stuff, knowing that I have strength at home and someone who's totally managing and responsible for the household,
everything of the household.
Allows me to be much more than I could be. And I've seen a lot of other people held back in their marriages, and that's a choice. It's something that's, everyone has to make their own deals and decisions with their marriage, but having a wife at home that is making sure that we're all fed, making sure we're all healthy, making sure we're all getting enough sleep, making sure that you're showing up to the PTA meetings, and making sure that when the kid's sick, that you can go pick them up and bring them home and take care of them, and that you're putting extra eyes on all the things that I don't see in our kids and bringing them to my attention when we need to deal with something. I just could not do what I do if I didn't have that support.
Yeah, people ask me why I don't work, and I'm like, well, he manages, the businesses, and I manage the household, which there's a lot, especially with teenagers running around. There's a lot there.
And other people navigate it in different ways. And that's fine too. But for me, that was such a game changer when we made that decision, and it has supported the growth. Like the if I was going to say massive success of our businesses, a huge part of that is having really that strength at home that I can lean on and count on. And I just know that it's handled.
You release everything. When it comes to running the household and the children. Yeah.
And not to be like misogynistic or anything, but it's like, I haven't set foot in a grocery store other than to pick up a loaf of bread on occasion.
Last night.
When you ask me to, or I haven't, when's the last time I washed a floor or did a load of laundry? Like, I can't even remember. And not because I can't or because I don't want to help or whatever, but it just doesn't, I just don't think about it because it's handled.
Part of it too is I do those things during the day while you're busy, while you're at work, because even in the evenings I'm at things with the kids and you're still at work, that when you do have time at home, that we aren't doing those things.
Absolutely.
That when you are at home, we're spending time together, we're spending time with the kids as a family, whatever that looks like. You're not doing laundry. We're not
both coming home from work and then figuring out how to make dinner and get the laundry done. And we're already both tired and exhausted and trying to catch up. And you see a lot of people do that and no qualms with that. I understand the reasons why it happens, but for our marriage, it was a game changer. And we made huge sacrifices in the early years when we didn't have as much money as we could have had if we had double incomes. And
Absolutely.
we made sacrifices in what house we lived in and what cars we drove and what activities we could do and holidays we went on, because we wanted to live off one income and have you at home. And those sacrifices back then were so worth it and always will be worth it.
They weren't easy.
They weren't easy. We made the sacrifices, but they paid off in a very big way in our ultimate success and the health of our marriage.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So that's another a really big one for us. I know it's not for everybody, but it made all kinds of difference in our marriage.
I think just understanding what you want in your marriage and in your family is what makes it work.
Yeah, being in an agreement.
Yeah.
And so that kind of segues into the next thing, which is having unified goals.
Yeah.
Right. And that was when I was reading about entrepreneurial, like divorce and entrepreneurs, the number one thing that helped solve that is that when the husband and the wife had consistent unified goals, that they were working towards something together and they both were in agreement toward that.
Yeah.
Right. And that means having conversations about, how much are we willing to take on? You and I have sat down many times and went, okay, well, are we going to lead this community group again this year because our time is already so constrained? Are we going to let the kids all play whatever sports they want, or are they going to each get one thing that they get to play for the good of our family? What are we going to prioritize? We're going to prioritize having a family night on Sunday nights every night so that we can stay in touch with one another. Absolutely. Are you good with me expanding our business, because that will create a season where I'm going to be a way busier for 3-6 months, a year at a time, and that means that it's going to be harder on you and harder on the kids? And are you willing to do that now, or is it like, well, you just did that last year and we need a bit of a breather here, and so this summer needs to be more relaxed, and so you shouldn't do that this year? Right? Having those unified goals and you understanding and being on board with and us working together towards the why of what we do, the impact that our finances and our businesses can have on the community, on the charities that we want to serve, on the reputation of our family and the kingdom that we're trying to build. Knowing the impact that the work that I put in when I'm at work has financially on those goals makes it easier for you. It doesn't make it easy. It makes it easier for you to understand and be compassionate and give grace to those moments when you're carrying an extra heavy load at home while I'm carrying an extra heavy load at work.
Yeah.
Right. So we do a thing called Core 4. I do it with all my employees and we do it with our family. And it's been a really great tool and I would highly recommend it to anybody. And what it is we take 4 quadrants. So family, faith, fitness, and finance. And we break them down into 5, 10-year goals, 3-year goals, 1-year goals, and then 90-day goals. And then we prioritize the things that matter in the seasons that matter, right?
Yeah.
So we get
each of the kids have their own.
Each of the kids have their own goals and plans that they're walking out. And especially the 90-day ones, the really close ones, we review them every week at our family meeting. And so we can help each other reach all of our individual goals, and we can stay focused and accountable through that. But we have 4 quadrants. So we don't just work on finance, which is work and all the things that are related to our income and our production. That's only one piece. And so we have a certain amount of priorities that we give it there, but it only gets so much time and energy when we're doing it. And so we schedule it accordingly. And when we talk about family, we prioritize the things that matter. So if date nights are a thing that we're working on in this quarter and we want those, we prioritize them and schedule them. For you and I, we have always have had a fairly important rhythm of we'd like to spend 1 week together, just you and I alone per year on a holiday. And then also we tried now, and this is later in our entrepreneurial journey when we could afford to, but we try to get away once every quarter for a weekend just to spend together.
Newish.
Yeah, we've only done that recently, but as we got more success, we had the opportunity to prioritize it more.
Yeah.
Right. And then weekly date nights is another thing that hasn't been a priority lately. We're not with our teenage kids and chasing them all there. But you could call in some scenarios us driving around for 4 hours, picking and dropping off kids at date night because we're just hanging out together.
Yeah, 150 kilometers in
3 hours of dropping stuff. Yeah. So anyways, what I want to get at is that we're prioritizing. When we understand that our fitness and our health is incredibly important. Our faith and our relationship with God and our mental health is incredibly important. Our relationships, our family, our friends, and how we invest and spend time on that is incredibly important. And yes, work and our finances and our financial health of our family is incredibly important. But if any of those 4 quadrants collapses or fails, if our marriage fails because I'm giving all my energy to our finances and to my fitness, then it all collapses because it was all for nothing. And so understanding that you must keep those 4 things strong and you must give them the right amount of intention and time and priority, and knowing that you're only one person and you only have so much time helps us to keep things in balance. And there is really no true balance, but what there is prioritizing and executing.
Communication, prioritization.
And if you understand my goals and I understand your goals and we align our goals together, then we're working and rowing in the same direction, which keeps us strong as a family and tight, right?
Yeah.
And so we teach that to our kids and we do it as a family every week. And it's been transformational for our family and understanding what we value and what's important. And staying focused on that constantly and not letting things slide, because when you're not going back and checking what your goals and your priorities are and you're not holding each other accountable, that's when things slip, when you're not communicating and you're not watching and you're not measuring, making sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that is that whole having a unified vision and goal and desire and dreams as a family is something that really takes that entrepreneurial failure rate and knocks it off a cliff, because you're making sure that you're prioritizing your relationships. We get our family values figured out and we spend our time rehashing through them every week and making sure that we're aligning with our values each individually. And when there's something where we're, especially with kids, where they tend to fall off the edge a little bit from time to time and slide on things that they shouldn't be, we can haul them back and point to the value that matters to our family and that they need to be working on and why that matters to our family. And so that really keeps everyone focused on the why and the reputation and the integrity and the purpose of our family. And so that's another thing we super highly prioritize. So what I struggle with is the things that I see in entrepreneurs that causes them to fail. And I thought I'd point a few of those things out just kind of as we wrap up here at the end of this conversation. And that is that entrepreneurship is a very hard and challenging thing to choose. And there's major time constraints and massive amounts of stress and risk and challenges. And many entrepreneurs build their entire identity into their business.
Yes.
Who they are and what they build is all that matters. And they don't, and it kind of points back to the core 4 thing, is that they don't realize that if they put 100% of themselves into their business, that they will let the other things falter, the other main priorities that make for a good and healthy and whole life. Like relationships and marriage and children and friends and all those things, like your fitness. A lot of entrepreneurs let their bodies go and their health go, and they end up having a heart attack, or they eat badly and they don't keep that stuff in check. And so then if you end up having a health scare, or you make it to 55 and you have a heart attack and die before you ever get to where you're trying to get to, it derails everything. It's not serving your spouse, it's not serving your kids, it's not serving your goal in your spiritual life. And so it craters, and ultimately it will crater your business. And so we need to make sure that we're keeping the things at the forefront that matter. And when we are building a business, a lot of people are looking for the financial piece of the business, but ultimately the reason what we become an entrepreneur is to get our freedom financially and time and spiritually. We want to be free. And that needs to stay at the center of the goal of what you're trying to build. And so if it's work, more, and the lack of contentment, that you're never going to get to the good part that you're working toward, to the purpose of what you're building your business for.
And you forget that your spouse is there because you've been working. And then when you get to the goal,
yeah, you finally get to the place where you want to take your family out on that holiday that you've always dreamed of, and they're not there to go with you anymore. And even if they are there, they don't even know you or want to spend time with you. And I see it happen all the time, and it's just heartbreaking. Yeah. And it isn't the purpose.
No.
It's not the purpose of business. It's not the purpose of our lives, is to erode everything that matters for the sake of building a business. So, yeah, that's our thoughts on marriage in a nutshell. So I hope that was helpful to you today. I hope that pointed out some new things and some ideas that you can use to work on in your marriage. And we just want you to know that we care about you and hope that your relationships and your family is healthy and strong and growing, just like we'd like to see you growing in your leadership and in your business.
Yes.
So thanks for joining us. Talk to you again next week.